quick updates on things that have been happening recently. So we had our AGM, that was when we last all met. And since then we've had our first board meeting with our new board members, which was fantastic. It's so great to have them all on board. And I think I feel very confident going forward that we're going to be able to get a lot done with that leadership now. And so we've got board roles. We've got Kirsten Wilson as chair, Margaret Birch as vice chair, Jim Allard as treasurer, and Sonia Knechtel as secretary. And then we have also set up some board committees, which will be kind of fleshed out and developed as we go forward. But basically, we have a committee on finance, one on funding, and one on people and culture. On December 3rd, I'll be presenting to the Port Coquitlam City Council on what we've been doing in Port Coquitlam over the last year, and seeking renewed funding for 2025. I know Margaret Birch also has a presentation planned to Arts Connect tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So that presentation is going to be on the rain garden. And if anybody has time and would like to go out to join Arts Connect that night, it's quite an inspiring and beautiful presentation from what I've seen. We've also got our own bank account now. So previous to this, Watershed Watch has acted as our trustee for a long time, and our monies have been managed by them. So we did not have our own account. We sort of had an account within Watershed Watch's account. Now we have our own account, and in 2025, we will be going forward managing our finances on our own. So that process is well underway now. And yeah, we also have a City of Coquitlam board representative assigned who will be starting on in 2025. And so I think at this point, I'll just wait to share who that person is, because yeah, but we'll be welcoming them on board in 2025.
And it's a city councillor, just so it is a councillor. I don't know if you said that, you might have.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. Okay, so that's it for the updates for now, unless I've forgotten anything or missed anything that anyone else can think of. Okay. If
Georgia,
not, yeah.
I guess I gave you the thumbs up. I'm a little bit not getting the proper icons going on. Sorry. I had a question. So in regards to the presentation on December the 3rd, are you going to be also stating your ask?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good job.
That is
very important. And, you know, nobody will say yes or no to it that night, because then it goes to the other processes that go on, you know, for when we do our budget process coming up in the new year.
Right. Okay. Well, I won't expect an answer that night, but I will definitely clearly make the ask. So
good. That's great. No, and appreciate you coming and looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you too, Nancy. It was a nice group last time, so I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And Georgia, do you want to just outline sort of what you're asking the City of Poco?
Yeah, I'll be asking for renewed funds from the City of Port Coquitlam, and the City of Port Coquitlam has been a funder, I think, since 2019 to 2023 of the roundtable, and those funds have been really helpful as operational funds for our organization. So, you know, they help pay for, you know, just all the work of myself and the other coordinators and contractors that are on board in helping to facilitate our project work, and just, you know, the coordination work of the roundtable. And so, yeah, while we have received a lot of really very much appreciated specific grant funding this year, a lot of that was tied to projects. And so in order to do, like, it was a substantial amount of administrative work that took place this year, and we really need operational funds for that. So our ask is for the 1,500 that we have been, or sorry, 15,000.
Yeah.
excuse me, that we've been receiving for the past several years. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer any more questions about that after the meeting if anyone would like to know more.
Georgia, before you move on, are you able to take the view into a slideshow view? Because we're reading all the notes on the left column.
Yeah.
Or
Yes, I should be able to
just
do that.
the slideshow view.
Slideshow presenter view. There we go. Thank you. Okay, here we go. That should be better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I'll go into the watershed plan now. There's a link down below. You can download the watershed plan easily from our website using that link. And the plan was, it really came together in 2014 and 2015 with the support from all of our member organizations, as well as lots of consultation with the public. And so, you know, here we are in 2024 and we're still implementing that watershed plan. It covers a lot of ground and it gives a really good kind of summary overview of the watershed. What are the key pressures that are that we need to be concerned about with human and ecological impacts in the watershed, and what are some strategies that are in place, or that the plan proposes some strategies to mitigate the impacts in the watershed. So just to kind of, what this is that it's got an adaptive management approach. So it's been in place for 10 years, this plan. But the thing that kind of keeps it new is this kind of iterative approach that exists within the plan, which is called the adaptive management approach. So it's, you know, you plan, you implement, we check the results of our work, we adapt our programs and our approaches, and then we start again. We plan a project, we implement it, check its results, adapt, and do another project. So this presentation will go over what's in the plan, and then as we go through, we can discuss some of the areas that we might want to work in 2025. So yeah, there are 14 identified pressures in the watershed. These are hazardous spills. And I'll just mention right off the bat that hazardous spills is not something that the Roundtable or Society has typically dealt with, largely because this is an issue that requires some enforcement. It's a fairly complex issue, and it's really better dealt with by the municipalities. And they are making quite a lot of progress on dealing with that. So that one we kind of just leave off. But in general, the rest of these around the top are where we focus most of our efforts because they are high impacts or pressures. So there's stormwater, there's invasive species, development, water extraction, vandalism and illegal activities. So that would be dumping, that would be I think it's largely dumping, graffiti, things like that. There's railroads, roads and transportation, mainstream cultural norms, dams and dikes, culverts, urban wildlife, and sewage and wastewater spills, mining aggregates. And so that this one's down at the bottom because it's been found that there's actually this is a low impact activity in the watershed, even though that's not always, that doesn't necessarily align with the perception out there, but the findings tell us that a lot of the actions that have been implemented by this industry have had an effect on keeping water quality good. And then there are the hatcheries. So this is sort of a rating system, which you can find in the plan. And I won't go over all of it, but just in general, it points out sort of where the impacts of these items are on these different ecological and human well-being components. So strategies for action. basically the watershed plan working group selected 8 pressures of stormwater development, invasive species, and watershed extraction, recreation, vandalism, and illegal activities and mining. So we have 17 strategies for action in place, which are outlined in the plan. And since 2016, we've been making progress on those strategies. So I'll go over some of those strategies now. Starting out with stormwater, which this past year, a whole lot was done on stormwater and has been in recent years. It's been quite an active area where we've been working. So what's said in the plan is it suggests a stormwater homeowner outreach, or a campaign to outreach to homeowners on the topic of stormwater, to adopt voluntary practices on their property to mitigate the impact of all of that runoff that comes off of driveways, off of rooftops, and to look at ways that alternate paving surfaces can be used, things like that. Or permeable paving surfaces could be used. That would be one of the sort of messages that would go out in a campaign like that. There's also to promote adaptive stormwater management process. So looking at stormwater improvements at a watershed-wide scale, and this would be largely, I think, sort of providing advice or sort of policy analysis for some of the cities. And these are some of the things that we've done over recent years. So in 2020, a stormwater committee was formed, and that stormwater committee looked at putting in a rain garden, a demonstration rain garden. And so that happened in 2021. There was also an all governments presentation on stormwater management plans and monitoring programs in 2021. And so, yes, in 2024, we've continued that work with, as you all know, our recent rain garden maintenance event on BC Rivers Day. And so that's an area there where we will continue to need some support. And so anyone who would like to be on the stormwater committee going forward in 2025, we'd really love to have some leadership in that area, looking at both sort of, how we can maintain proper drainage in the rain garden, how we can keep the plants healthy, keep it weeded. There's also been some issues with, dogs digging in the garden, or, or people letting their dogs poop in the garden. So there are some matters there that we just want to be aware of. And Margaret, I know both you and Melissa have been really involved on the rain garden over the course of the fall. So, and also Nancy McCurra has really been a big supporter of it as well. So are there any comments or from anyone? Really,
yeah, actually, Nancy here, I have a couple of comments, if I may. Can you please go back a slide or two, please?
That one?
Yeah, that one. So right there. See where you say, where it says stormwater homeowners outreach. I think it'd be good to also put in their business or businesses as well. I had the pleasure of touring Saputo. Is that how you say it, right? And I was very fascinated to find that they harness their rainwater from the roof, and it goes down underneath, and I think it's used for heating their building. So these are innovative ways for capturing stormwater, and then promote adaptive stormwater management process. So I think it's on the next page, please.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh,
see where it says, well, back, yeah, right there. So where it says stormwater homeowner outreach, the city of Port Coquitlam, and thank you to Scott and yourself, actually, Georgia, for our Earth Day. That was when we promoted, and we're still going to keep doing this, I believe, are our rain barrels. So this is what is very popular, and maybe not to just always have it on hand, because then it reminds people to, you know, um, take note of harnessing what they can in regards to rainwater. Oh, there's my dog all of a sudden barking, and he didn't bark at all. But does that sound helpful? One
Yeah,
second,
those are,
don't let him in. He doesn't. He's a little follower. He will. Come on in. He's such. I think I'm his what do you call it? Therapy human. Thanks. So yes, that would be helpful. And then I forgot to ask you, when you were going to come and do the presentation on December the 5th, are you able to do maybe 5 slides as well?
oh yeah, yeah, certainly.
Good
I'll
job.
prepare some slides on all of the projects that we've done in the city over the
Thank you.
past year.
Looking good though. Does that sound helpful?
Absolutely.
But I
Yeah,
just
no, those are two really good suggestions, I think, two great additions to the work.
even within the city of Coquitlam, and I guess all cities, I had attended the Council of Councils with Metro Vancouver, and it was raised, and the question was, well, how do I want to say, it wasn't really raised. It was brought to the attention that there is a, rising costs of water in the overall district, and how maybe there's ways that we can um, harness more water, and ways to look for it rather than waste it would be ways like more rain gardens and more water barrels and things like this. So, to make it, throughout the whole Metro Vancouver as well, some projects that are obvious. Yeah. So
Yeah,
pretty good though, otherwise. Thanks.
great. Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's also worth pointing out like that this is an area where that with climate change, we're seeing the impacts of stormwater increase. So yeah, really important to keep working on it. Melissa?
Yeah. Hi. I also wanted to add, for your invitation to add things, about the stormwater outreach program. What? Oh, it's gonna automatically lower my hand. Sorry. Distractions. Yeah, for the ongoing maintenance and promotion of the rain garden. I mean, I know I'm new to the organization, but I really love that rain garden. I'm really invested in it. And I know that I was initially brought on as staff kind of just for until the end of October, because that's when we thought the rain garden stuff was gonna be done. But um yeah, I'm myself happy to put myself be one of the people who does that ongoing maintenance and promotion. We were having some like drainage problems over the years, and like this morning I had breakfast with a Coast Salish auntie, and she just like immediately knew she was like, oh well, this plant would be good and this plant would be good. So I just like I think it's oh yeah, also I noticed we on the agenda for the introductions, there was supposed to be a territory acknowledgement, and we kind of I think skipped over that, which I'll just do it now. And yeah, so I'm in quote unquote North Van, so I'm actually not in Coquitlam Nation territory, but I'm on Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish unceded territory. And like the Coquitlam Nation, these lands, these waters were never ceded to us. So, they're actively indigenous, and I think that the work that we are doing, like this exact thing, is really trying to help like the watershed and the people be healthy. And I think we can always be thinking about how we can like implement like the TRC calls to action, for example, in our stuff. So just a little reminder about that there. But yeah, if anyone else wants to like be a rain garden person with me, I would really welcome y'all's presence. Yeah.
Well, that's great to know. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for stepping forward like that, and for keeping us on, on the ball with just aware and appreciative of the fact that we are on the territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, and yeah, and that we continue to be grateful for their stewardship of these lands. So, yeah. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add on stormwater at this point?
Sure. It's Nancy again. I'll add one more thing. We recently just last night we're working on uh, our overall transportation plan coming up, and what we're going to try to work on as well are rain gardens along the boulevards in certain places, where we can put them in. So I would like to see that. I know the trickle through effect would go, maybe at some point towards I mean, I was going to say Hyde Creek to the Coquitlam River watershed, but we have, I think, 2 or 3 watersheds in our area. But it's just to Melissa, and I hope to see more of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. You cut out at the end there a little bit, unfortunately. At least you did for me. But
Yeah, so just within the master transportation plan, how important it is to in cities to actually implement rain gardens even along the sidewalks and MUPs that are being created to be able to harness water to trickle down into the ground through to the streams wherever they are. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. That's a great point. I know there's a project near my house here in Vancouver, actually, that involved putting a rain garden in along a road, sort of it's not quite a boulevard, but it's sort of a traffic calming mechanism, and it was very helpful in the last atmospheric river in reducing runoff. So
You see, and some give pushback the opposite way, saying we should just put everything concrete because it looks messy and blah 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 blah. Um, but I personally and everybody on this committee would not want to see a world like that. But there are those that think that's the easiest and fastest way and cleanest and neatest way. But I disagree. So I think it's important that we speak when we're able to. And we all know that there's certain plants that are better at surviving in rain gardens. So that would be nice to as well know from the inventory that we've done in the rain garden in Lions Park to see which ones were stronger, more resilient, right? Because that helps with the climate around here to know what ones are good when they select them within the cities as well. Thanks.
yeah, absolutely. And I know Scott was also instrumental in helping us think about the plants
Thanks.
that we were going to put in this round. So
Yeah, some perished, but I'm not too up on which ones they were, but there weren't a lot that did. There were some.
yeah, I can't. Margaret or Melissa, do you or Scott? I think were some of them the ferns.
I think a couple of ferns didn't make it. There were some sedges that also didn't make it. And maybe one tall Oregon grape, but most of the Oregon grapes did make it. There's 2 varieties of them in there, and both of them are like kind of doing the same amount of how they're doing. But I think the ferns mostly were what didn't do so well there. But the suggestion actually from that auntie was to put some skunk cabbage and cattails if it's like really swampy areas. So we could consider adding some of those if we do a second one or a next round, or if we continue to have drainage problems in the current one. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'm just going to go to the next area
Georgia,
keep-
while you're on that one, sorry, I can't figure out for the life of me how to raise my hand. I haven't used Zoom for a little while here.
Sorry, Jesse.
Excuse me for jumping in. I just thought it might be timely on the stormwater side. I'm sure some people are well aware, but just for context, I just had a couple of things to report back on pertaining to the October 1920 rainfall event. And just even in a regional context, it was, if this is the right time for it, highly significant for the Coquitlam River and area. We had one of our, so of all the precip stations we have across the region, upwards of 50 or so we're monitoring. I think we had, if you're going to use the numbers somewhere after, then check with me first, but I think it was 353 millimeters of rainfall in a 48-hour period at Coquitlam Dam. The Coquitlam River Water Survey Canada gauge recorded the highest recorded flows on record, which is 1966 to present. So, and this is with very minimal discharge from BC Hydro Coquitlam Dam operations. So they were basically holding their water use plan minimum ordered flows to try and minimize impacts downstream. And so a very, very significant event. So it's a good representative event for future consideration for everyone in downstream areas. It might be, I just thought it was maybe timely to insert that information here. And there's a number of challenges that came from that event for many communities and people and loss of life and everything else. So just wanted to put that on the record as to the scale and magnitude of that event. Across the region, it wasn't quite so impactful. It was a bit lesser so on the North Shore and other places, but in terms of peak rainfall intensity and everything else, it was one to have in the books for future consideration. So while you're on the topic, I just thought I would mention it's quite relevant to the discussion, and it's only exactly 1 month ago yesterday. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's it was a massive event, and and it seems that we're up for more of that in the future. So thank you. Is there anything more that should be said at this point on stormwater from anyone? Okay, I'll keep going with development because it seems, I think we're running a little bit behind schedule, but these are big topics. So, okay, development. So development is also a high rated strategy in the watershed. And we have some strategies laid out in the plan, which include exploring options with the development community, Coquitlam First Nations, environmental and legislative experts to devise strategies that may address development pressures in the watershed. So quite broad, but then the next one is a natural space strategy, assess the current open space system to identify areas of importance that provide multi-benefits for future development areas based on ecological, social, and economic values. And develop an impact map to show watershed-wide environmental activities, natural areas, human impacts to inform decision makers of the community about ways to address pressures from the development in the lower watershed. So some of these have been implemented or partially implemented, maybe implemented in a slightly different way. In 2017, there was a development committee formed, and we do have a development incentives study, development strategies for action case studies. In 2018, there was a developers workshop, Coquitlam First Nation engagement. In 2019, a natural assets management workshop, which I believe is still available on our website, and roundtable input with Morgard on the Coquitlam Mall redevelopment plans. And then in 2023, we had the Center for Law and the Environment produce a report on LIDs, or low impact development, which looked at building codes, bylaws, policies, and regulations. And there's quite an extensive set of bylaws and regulations in the municipalities that govern development. And one of the things we found was that there was just a lot of them. And one of the bits of feedback that we heard from the cities was, you know, as these plans as these bylaws and guidelines have been updated, you know, there's some streamlining that could take place. But in general, there is a lot out there. So I was not really around for many of those first events that I mentioned. And I wonder if anyone would like to speak to those, or any of the other projects that have taken place. I should also point out that there's a development impact map, which is the part of the Interactive Watershed Atlas project. And that's available on our website as well. I think there have been some recent additions to the impact map, but certainly there could probably be some more added as well. So yeah, is there any thoughts, comments, questions on any of this regarding development? I know, I mean, with the LIDS project that we have, that came out recently. It's an incredibly thick document. And I think one of the things that we could do, a possible option for 2025 might be to see if we can sort of make that a little bit more accessible to the public, select chunks of it, or kind of make bite-sized pieces, either in video or document format, maybe write, you know, some pieces for press release on just what is in that document, to try and get it out there to the public.
Georgia, but
Yeah.
sorry. But it is on our website, right? You can link to it.
It is on the website.
just
Yes,
to be
thanks. So
clear. Yeah. Good.
yeah, that's a good point. I should add a link. Before I send this out, I'll add the link to the LIDS report. Anything else on development? Any ideas, comments? It's a big and important issue.
Georgia, can I just make a comment? It's Sherry
Yeah.
Carroll.
Yes, please, Sherry.
You know, municipalities are being really pressured to do much more housing. And they're looking at a lot of spaces that are empty, but should not be developed. And it might be something for us to have a look at the damage that's being done by this particular provincial statement, rule, because you can't get out of it now. It means that the municipalities really can't define what they allow to be developed. And it's happening all over the place. So we might want to have a look at that.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, and it's been brought up.
If you look at that development they've got on Kingsway in Poco, look at the infrastructure that has to be replaced because of it. And the drainage and everything else, and it's awfully close to the river. So that's one of the things that we really should be very, very careful of.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there are also, Anne, please go ahead.
I just want to ask about this. I know it's about development. Is there room on this map to put on restoration projects that have been done?
Absolutely. I think that was the majority of the sites that are on the map are restoration projects. So yeah, if you have any to add to the map that you'd like us to be aware of, by all means, please reach out and we can enter those in.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
It might be a good idea one day to put on the agenda, Georgia, just to run through the map, like to show it again, because we haven't looked at it for quite a long time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
For about 10 minutes to just everyone so they can take a look at it.
Yeah.
At one of our meetings.
Yeah. The only challenge there might be that it's a fairly big thing to run on a Zoom presentation.
You know what, or even maybe a link to it then.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I'll add a link and
Yeah,
see if maybe it's
that's true.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just put a link in the chat, this one, right? Georgia, the CMN map.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jacqueline. That's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah, no problem.
great. So yeah, by all means, get on there and check it out because it's a really cool resource. And hopefully there is a way that we can share that with the core committee, or just do a kind of update presentation on it briefly. I think this is development it seems like a fairly kind of complex issue. And I think it would really benefit from having some expertise as a committee that sort of can steer us in the right direction. And so I know we've got Jeff. I think unfortunately he wasn't able to join the call tonight, but you know, if there's anyone who would like to maybe join a committee on this topic, I think that would be, you know, that would be really a good place to start. Yeah. If there aren't any further comments on development, I'll keep going. Okay. Okay. So invasive species. This is also a big, highly rated pressure on the watershed, both for like the impact that they have on aquatic habitat, and on native species in the watershed. So the strategies in the plan are to align the invasive species management efforts. So Metro Vancouver has an invasive species management strategy, and there's a call to align efforts across municipalities and compile watershed data on invasive species. There was also a strategy to implement a ban on the sale of invasive species, and target the development of an educational awareness campaign for watershed residents to learn about the impact of invasive species. So some of those things I believe we've made some progress on. In 2016 to 2019, were quite a few developments. And maybe Margaret, since you've been, you know, such a long-standing member, maybe some of these, since you were there, I was, and yeah, maybe good to have your input.
Okay, these early years, 2016 to 2019, there was we had funding support through Van City, Portco Community Foundation, and it involved education and outreach on water use and invasive species. So it's a various number of things. And one of the things Van City really wanted to learn about is, you can tell people about invasive species, but how are you going to know if they have learned from that and they're changing the behavior? So part of the exercise was to involve plant walks, showing folks the invasive species by the river, involving Port Coquitlam Park staff in helping identify the native species, explain the impacts they have on the river. It was a lot of these events were tied in with Rivers Day. And it was back in the early years with Melissa Chon and with Bonnie and we did probably 10 or 12 sites of a pop-up outreach campaign to try to raise awareness. And since then, it's been more active on doing species pulls and in creeks and in more recent years. But it also included the tabletop display that we have with the funding that was provided. Metro Vancouver was instrumental in the content and the messaging about invasive species. So that's about in a nutshell.
Great, thanks, Margaret. And yeah, more recently, we produced a series of a video on invasive species. We've done blackberry pulls. There was a presentation by the city of Coquitlam on both the urban forest and tree bylaw, and as well as the impact of invasive species. And there have been there are some other things that we could do. Certainly, I think we could help make high school students or youth more aware of invasive species in the community, or other groups. It works well for sort of a walking tour, that kind of thing. So we might want to start that again. Is there any questions or comments from the rest of the group? I know we're running overtime here a little bit as well, and my apologies for that. So I think maybe we can wrap this up by 6:15, and if anyone is able to stay on till that time, that would be great. If not, please feel free to drop off, and we'll make the recording available. Scott, did you want to say something on this?
Sure, I think Anne had her hand up before me. You can go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question. My understanding was the e-bikes weren't allowed on trails. Did you get special permission for that, or?
Oh, sorry, the Lime Bikes was just the organization that did the Blackberry pull.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say that I think Riverside High School has an environmental program, and they've been pretty keen in the past to do invasive pulls along Coquitlam River near their school.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, they actually have reached out to us and didn't mention invasive pulls specifically, but we thought that might be a good area for, to work with them. So fantastic. Thanks, Scott. Right. I'll keep going. So we have vandalism and illegal activity, which is very much about dumping. And so our plans that are laid out our strategies that are laid out in the plan include educating residents on the cumulative impact of littering and dumping on a watershed-wide scale, and the outreach program. So provide awareness and understanding about the existing tree management and clearing bylaws within the cities. So, excuse me. So work that's been done in this area has involved organizing various shoreline and riverside cleanups, events aimed at causing behavioral change to reduce the amount of litter that ends up there in the first place. And we've developed presentations for newcomers, empowered the homeless to help with cleanups in 2021. In 2022, we produced a video called The Locals of Maple Creek, which is quite popular, and that dealt with the effects of dumping on wildlife. There was the mutant fish art installation at Gates Park, which was built from garbage collected along a streamside cleanup. And from 2022 to 24, we've had annual riverside cleanups in Gates Park. That seems to have reduced, at least visibly, as far as I can see, some of the litter in Gates Park. And we have a video on that event as well. And then in 2021, we also had a presentation to Success. This is something that could be updated and reformatted and delivered again. So that's another possible suggestion for work in 2025. Nancy?
Yeah, just two quick things. Lately, the term homeless has been changed to unhoused.
Great.
So it might need a little tweak there. And what else? The Success, we've also had Access Youth helping us.
Okay.
Or I forget when that was. I'm pretty sure it was affiliated with the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, but they came out and helped us. I think it was like 3 years ago. When I broke my leg, I couldn't actually go and help, but they came with their bus.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Access Youth,
They
if you
came
have
with
a contact that you could share or anything.
Yeah, actually, it's Councillor Kim from the city of Coquitlam. He's actually taken that role over.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that would be a great pairing.
Right on. Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
all. Thank
Great, thanks. Anything else? Okay. And finally, getting to recreation. As we mentioned at the beginning with the LAN, and it's come up a few times, this is something that has been receiving a growing amount of attention from the public and from the media. So what our plan says about it is that we could do a no impact campaign in schools, have a school program where kids have access to learn about recreating without an environmental impact. There's also the Coquitlam River Main Stem Outreach Campaign suggested, which would prevent unsustainable recreation in the river corridor main stem that harms riparian areas, wildlife, and aquatic habitat and native plants and species at risk. So yeah, we've made some progress in this area. Roundtable members participated in 2019 in events at secondary schools to seek input from students on pressures that stem from recreation, and gathered some of their ideas. In 2023, we did an educational workshop for students at Castle Park Elementary School. So that was those are the kids that produced a lot of those signs that you can see, I think, along the Coquitlam River, encouraging people to keep their dogs out of the river to prevent disturbing salmon redds. So really great that those kids took that on, and yeah, there have been just a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of interest in this topic recently. So it's certainly something that we could develop a workshop on, develop a video on. It would be great to have some like a, kind of a content development session so that we could make sure that all our messaging is correct around it. Anyone have any thoughts or comments on that? I think if I remember correctly, if Yu Ching is still on the call, this was something that we discussed potentially doing with Langara, because they have a program that would involve students in supporting a project. And so we were thinking, well, maybe, I think there is a recreation management program at Langara. And so this could potentially be an area to work with them.
Yeah, we have a capstone research course for our Bachelor of Recreation Management program. So students would partner with a community organization to answer some research question that would be sort of troubling them. We also have other programs at the college that have capstones. And so even our diploma in applied social sciences, they have a capstone project where they try and action something that the organization is having trouble kind of doing either off the side of their desk, or they don't have the resources to do that. So yeah, from a student perspective, for sure, I think there's lots of opportunities. I was taking notes throughout the meeting today about possibilities where it sounds like, oh, like if we could get a student capstone project, or turn it into a project for a course at Langara, that might be an opportunity where you essentially get free labor, right? Like students would be tackling some of those issues for you, or creating recommendations where you can then decide to action them or not. And then the other part too, there's some more I think we'll call them like wicked problems, where they're like quite complex, like especially the development piece that you were talking about. Those are opportunities where faculty might be able to get involved and do research projects through research grants. But like some of the more scoped out, it sounds like the table here has an idea of where the tactic should be and what it should look like. That could definitely be executed by students. They might take a design spin on it to kind of make it their own, or bring in some elements that you might not have thought of, but the general tactic sounds like you have an idea of what you want already, and that would be a really good fit for a class project.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you. That sounds like there's a lot of potential there. Awesome. So we'll just keep the conversation going on around that.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Hi, sorry, it's Elan. I don't know as well how to raise my hand here right now. Just thinking in the sense of how folks are communicated, and I think and I think the idea of youth leading it, understanding they are influencers at their home in their homes to their parents, whether they're young or going to university is a great idea. The sense of QR codes is a big thing. I know not everybody maybe has a phone, but sometimes some messaging, we might be able to think about where people could look to scan or listen or hear something important in an area or a place or a message. So just something to consider.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great points. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, well, I'm just gonna, oh goodness, yes, we also have salmon, which is important. Of course, this is an area that cuts across all of those pressures, and there have been calls recently from many of our members to renew work around salmon. And so it's an ecological component that's impacted by invasive species, stormwater management, recreation, mining, and the Watershed Plan addresses impacts on salmon and aquatic fish habitat through several strategies for actions. And a combination of support for salmon fish habitat can be addressed through ongoing outreach and educational activities. So the Habitat Committee has been instrumental in taking on some work around this topic. And again, it would be wonderful to reestablish the Habitat Committee and kind of renew their efforts. So yeah, part of this presentation is also to encourage people to start thinking about what committee they might like to be on, what area of work they might like to work on. Committees are just really helpful in kind of helping to keep projects moving forward and do all the work and the research that's needed to develop some of these projects. So one of the things that we're looking at is currently we have got some funding to renew our display that goes out to festivals and events. And so we're going to be integrating some more information on salmon for that display. And so that will be something that takes place over the rest of the year. Yeah, we also have lots of presentations and videos on salmon and fish. And we have also been involved in some of the work that's taken place at hatcheries. So yes, there's lots of potential there. Those are really kind of our top areas of activity and focus, I think. There are a few more in the Watershed Plan, and for anybody who's interested in sort of some other broader ideas and areas where there are pressure, definitely I encourage you to go into the Watershed Plan, take a look at it, and come forward. I'd love to hear about any projects that you'd like to see happening or be involved with. And so, like I say, I think about the committees, if there's any interest that you have on joining a committee in any of these areas, we'd love to have that kind of involvement. And please do email me and let me know if you're interested in that. There'll also be some further communication that goes out around committee development over the rest of this year. And just in terms of next steps, so there have been a lot of amazing ideas that have come forward just tonight and sort of through email. The next step will really be we'll have a formal work planning session that takes place. I'm sorry, I'm just going to I'm skipping forward to this content. So our work planning session will take place on February 26th. And that'll be an in-person event. It really sort of sets the course for what happens through 2025. And prior to that, I'll try and do some sort of preliminary budget development to look at how much work we can feasibly take on in that year. And yeah, sorry, just a few other things that we could consider going forward is we've got a deadline to apply for Canada Summer Jobs funding. And so in the last couple of years, last 2 years that we've done this, we've had some videographers. We also had a watershed plan assessment carried out by a summer research student. And yeah, I'd be very happy to start discussing with anybody about projects that, you know, that we could have a Canada Summer Job student work on in the summer. Yeah, and we'll
Okay,
also have our.
can I just ask a quick question here? It's Sherry again. When is the deadline for the summer project review?
The Canada Summer Jobs application deadline is the December 19th. So just before Christmas,
Oh,
basically.
December 19th. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's coming up soon.
Okay, because you know, one of the things that Margaret and I discussed was, why don't we we all started this whole process by looking at other people that self-describe them as roundtables, and we've been around a long time. Now might be a good idea to get a student to evaluate how we've done compared to everybody else we actually looked at. And we did look at 5 very thoroughly. So
yeah, that would be interesting. And yeah, I mean, it connects well with Margaret's recent discussion of our organization when she went to I think Muskoka.
Yeah, you know,
so-
and just think about it. Why have we lasted so long, and have other roundtables lasted as long? The roundtable format is actually turning out to be a very interesting way of dealing with problems. So you'll find lots of municipalities now actually structuring discussions, public discussions around roundtables.
Cool.
Because the whole point of a roundtable is you share. You don't point fingers and scream.
Right.
Right?
Right. Cool. Yeah, I like that, Sherry. Yeah.
And I actually have all that documentation, which is prior to 2008.
Right.
We only did paper then.
Right.
It's not on the website at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really good to know. Thank you. I think we can. We'll definitely. I'll keep that in mind as I develop.
Yeah, keep it in mind. If it's not okay this year, we can always do it next.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you.